normally in society, we consider a human being as intelligent if he is clever at making achievements in his field of expertise, whether it is science, mathematics, arts, or any other field. If he can be innovative, if he can achieve results, then we consider him to be intelligent. And all over the globe, educationists are trying to cultivate through school, college, and university this kind of intelligence. You can call it the intelligence of the intellect, training of the intellect. Now, Krishnamurti pointed out that the intellect is only a fragment. He gave to intelligence a much more holistic, wider, and deeper meaning. He said there is no intelligence without compassion. And compassion and love are born of sensitivity. So unless a human being is sensitive, sensitivity means that his senses are acute and he responds to everything around him and relates with sensitivity to everything, not just to those things which lead to achievement in a particular direction. So he talked about a more holistic quality, and he didn't regard what we regard as intelligence normally in society as intelligence at all. But he also said, don't accept what I say. What I say points to a truth. You need to investigate it, doubt it, question it, discuss it, in order to have a deeper understanding for yourself and hopefully come upon the truth for yourself. Then the truth is not what I have perceived, but it becomes your truth. Normally consider ability at making achievements in one's field of expertise as intelligence, whatever that field may be. But Krishnaji didn't regard that as intelligence. He gave to the word intelligence a much wider and deeper and holistic meaning. He said, there is no intelligence without compassion. And compassion and love come from sensitivity. So unless you have sensitivity, you are not really intelligent because you will not have love and compassion. And mere ability without love and compassion becomes destructive. So he regarded intelligence as a more holistic thing. But he also said that we should not accept what he says just on the basis of his words, but investigate it, discuss it, question it, doubt it. And in investigating it deeply in our own life through observation, we deepen our understanding and can come upon the truth to which he is pointing for ourselves. And it's only that truth which liberates you or transforms your consciousness, not the knowledge and the idea of what he is saying. So that's what I intend to do today. I intend to investigate what he's saying and why he is saying that and whether that is true. Now, intellect is only one fragment of our being. There is also emotions, there are the senses, there is our body. And he regarded intelligence as a balance between the body, the intellect, and the emotions. Unless all three are integrated into a balanced whole, one is not really intelligent, according to him. Another statement that he made in Bombay in a talk in 1984, he said, put your intellect in your heart. It has no value outside it. That means if you have only cultivated the intellect without the qualities of the heart, then it is dangerous, because ability without wisdom, without love, without compassion becomes destructive. Let us investigate that, whether that is true. Have the so-called intelligent people really created a good society, a good world? To some extent, yes. There are lots of problems we were facing at the beginning of the 20th century, which have been solved through that expertise and knowledge which has been cultivated through education. So we have much better means of transportation, of communication, of dealing with health problems and diseases, epidemics, and so on. But the same kind of intelligence is not able to resolve other problems, major problems which we face, such as war, which comes from national division or religious division, which comes from people identifying themselves with a fragment, either a religion or a caste or a language or a nation, and then regarding other such groups as competitors or rivals, and caring only for your own group, the welfare of your own group, so that the intellect then is not in quest of truth, but only in quest of what is profitable for the me and the mine. The me and the mine being whatever you have identified with. So the mind becomes like the mind of a lawyer, which is looking at only what is good for his client and not at justice or fair play. And a mind which is constantly seeking its own security, expanding its own self-interest, becomes a mind like that. It becomes like a personal lawyer working for the me and the mine. And naturally, that creates division between other people who similarly create their own me and the mine. And that's the cause of war, of crime, of terrorism, and that creates tremendous insecurity under which our society is living. And this is not the creation of the ignorant villager or the uneducated man. is the creation of highly intelligent human beings produced by our education system. Because who makes all these weapons of mass destruction? Who supports the war? All the scientists who develop the nuclear bombs and other forms of destructive weapons, working as employees for their own government, they are not free from that hatred and division. So this intelligence has very limited scope. It produces ability, but it does not produce love or compassion or wisdom, what we call wisdom. And without wisdom, this kind of intelligence which cultivates power becomes destructive. If we look at all the dictators in history, starting with Alexander, our own Emperor Ashoka, during his first phase when he was extremely cruel before he embraced Buddhism. Stalin and Hitler in the 20th century, and more, you can add to that. They were all intelligent people, educated, disciplined. They became leaders of men in their own country because they were very intelligent, very able. But they were also the most destructive. The greatest cruelties in history have been perpetrated by such people. Before Alexander set on his conquest of the rest of the world, he went to a wise man in Greece called Diogenes. And he wanted his blessings for his victories. So Diogenes asked him, "Where will you go from here?" And he says, "I will conquer Iran." "Where will you go after that?" He says, "Then I'll conquer Iraq." "Where will you go after that?" He said, "Then I'll attack Afghanistan." "Where will you go after that?" He said, "Then I'll conquer India." Again, Diogenes asked, "Where will you go after that?" And he said, "Maybe then I'll come back home." So the wise man asked him, "What prevents you from doing that now?" Just the ambition of your own goal and wanting to achieve that goal, which is what we call intelligence. So when intelligence serves self-interest, the ego, then it becomes cruel, disastrous. And therefore, what we call intelligence is dangerous because one is cultivating power. And unless power, when you cultivate power through education, through knowledge, it becomes also your responsibility to ensure that your students will have the wisdom to use it rightly. Otherwise, they will use it for self-interest and become destructive. So what is there in our education system at present in the kind of intelligence we are trying to cultivate? To prevent barbarity, how do you ensure that you are not creating new Hitlers and new Alexanders and new Stalins? In religious literature, there is talk about God and there is talk about the devil. They are concepts. But both are infinitely powerful. The difference between them is not one of power, but God has love and compassion, non-violence and justice, and the devil does not. He has self-interest and ego on his side. You can replace in India, instead of God and devil, you can talk about Ram and Ravan. They were both extremely powerful, both extremely capable. So what ensures that you are producing Ramas and not Ravanas when you empower an individual? That's why he wanted to change education so that the students grow up with sensitivity. I'm not claiming that the Krishnamurti schools have achieved that aim, but they are attempting it. The other schools mostly are not even attempting it. It's not easy to achieve that, but it is essential to achieve that. Otherwise, one is really not intelligent. So what he is pointing out is that we have defined intelligence itself unintelligence. Cultivating this kind of intelligence does not create happiness or a healthy society. And he said, you are helping students to conform to a sick society, and that is no sign of health. If you look at the greatest sages of the world, Buddha or Jesus Christ, or in our own time, Krishnamurti or Ramana Maharshi or Kabir and so on, they are all people who were not necessarily great intellectuals. They were people who had qualities of the heart, who had love and compassion, who broke away from the past and brought new light into the world. They came upon wisdom, not merely knowledge. They broke away from tradition. So Krishnamurti said, the attempt to create success through education is not intelligence, because success is mediocrity. It's mediocrity because who is the successful man? The man who conforms to society, competes with everybody else, rises to the top, climbs every ladder that is put in front of him, which means he never really seriously questioned anything, which is why he is mediocre. So the spirit of inquiry is part of intelligence. Not only scientific inquiry and social inquiry, but also religious inquiry as to what is true and what is false, which leads to self-knowledge. And he said, without self-knowledge, you have no basis for thinking. You are merely repeating whatever you have been told, without knowing whether that is true. So the mind of the so-called intelligent people is also trapped in all kinds of illusions, national illusions, religious illusions, ideological illusions, conceptual things created by thought, which they accept as true. and work for. And in that kind of approach to life, you have all this devastation. We evolved from the animal, and we consider ourselves superior to the animals because we have more intelligence than they do. And that's why we have been able to put them in zoos or subjugate them, use them for running our carts and so on, and we are able to kill them for food without realizing that they also suffer. They have a highly evolved nervous system like us, and when you kill millions of animals for food, you are effectively doing what Hitler did with human beings. But you don't realize it because it's become commonplace and everybody eats animals as food. So unless you question deeply, you will never get out of this. You will follow tradition. And that's why he says your thinking has no basis. You are merely repeating whatever you have been told by your culture, your tradition, your parents, and so on, without questioning whether that is true or not. And that's why he said, don't accept what I say, investigate it, consider it. It's unintelligent to either accept a statement or to reject it. Because if you accept it, it means you are already thinking what the other person is saying, which is no evidence that that is true. It may be a common illusion which we share. If you reject it, you don't consider it at all. But that's what we teach in our education. The so-called intelligent man quickly responds to what he hears by saying, yes, I agree, or I disagree. And both these are unintelligent responses to that statement because nothing really changes, not even the ideas in the head, not to talk of consciousness. So what is the intelligent response? Can one listen to that? Whatever it is being said, whether it's being said by your child or by a book or by a wise man or whoever, not accept it on basis of authority, not reject it on the basis of lack of authority. Just listen to it, find out what meaning it conveys, and if you are not sure of the meaning, ask the person, is this what you mean? Because language is used to convey meaning. But once you have got the meaning, you have to ask a deeper question. Is this true? And not answer it from your own knowledge and your own memory, which is what we have been trained to do, because our memory and our knowledge contains all the conditioning and all the illusions of our particular brand of conditioning. So how else are we to find out whether it is true or false? He said, observe life with an open mind, a learning mind. A learning mind is a mind that doesn't say, I already know. It is aware that it does not know the ultimate truth. And therefore, it's always open to listen and to consider what is being said and investigate. And that's a sign of intelligence. So intelligence includes the ability to investigate and ascertain what is true and what is false, so that the false drops away, the illusion ends in the mind. So these divisions between religious groups and national groups are born of illusions. Illusions are propaganda which the mind is accepting. There is no difference between the Arab and the Jew. They share the same human body and the same consciousness. But they have been programmed differently by their conditioning because they have grown up in different families, different cultures, and they believe in all kinds of things which they have never really examined. When you identify that way without examining it, then you create division. It was Socrates who 2000 years ago said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And Krishna is saying the same. But this examination is not just an intellectual analysis. It's partly intellectual analysis, but it's also observation. It is awareness. It is all your senses. The whole being is involved in it. If you identify only with one fragment, which is the intellect, it does not transform consciousness, and therefore it's not intelligent to do that. But we are cultivating intelligence only of the intellect. Even psychologists have now understood that IQ was a very limited measure of intelligence. They are now talking also about EQ, emotional intelligence, which is how to relate with people and emotions and so on. How to handle emotions and so on. And of late, some people even talk about SQ, the spiritual quotient. So Krishna talked much earlier about all this, not in this language, not in as a measure, but as an integrated inquiry, which include observation, awareness, emotion, thinking, and analysis. Not dividing it, not saying, don't do thinking, don't do this, don't be emotional, not making rules about it and trying to follow your own rule, but just observing what goes on and what are the consequences of what goes on. That deepens your understanding. And before you have understood an issue, to come upon conclusions and just live with conclusions is not intelligent, because that creates illusion. So you have the illusion of the communists and the illusion of the capitalists. And they take umbrage, they identify with their own illusions, and ideological division comes up in the world. So all this Krishna is regarded as extremely unintelligent, and without self-knowledge, it won't change. Self-knowledge being the ability to discriminate between what is true and what is false, which requires a learning mind. The learning mind has humility. It says, I don't really know what the ultimate truth is. And it wonders. It listens to opinions, but doesn't accept any opinion, doesn't take sides with an opinion. It's like listening to a debate where people are speaking on two sides, on two different viewpoints, not taking sides, finding out what is true and what is false in each side. That way you grow in your understanding. So Krishnaji's idea of intelligence is far deeper, far wider, much more holistic, and includes the religious mind and the scientific spirit both in one. In the world today, we regard that science is antagonistic to religion because we have regarded religion as belief, and belief is not acceptable to science. And therefore, religious inquiry has been thrown out completely from education because we say we live in a scientific age and scientific world, so scientific inquiry has to be promoted. And you cannot at the same time talk about religion because religion is belief. And Krishnaji points out that what you consider to be religion is not real religion. What you consider to be love is not real love. It's mixed up with desire, with attachment, with possessiveness, with jealousy. It's not love. What you call education is not real education. It's just training. So when you have superficial meanings of words, you live and you take decisions out of this superficial mind. And therefore it creates more confusion and more trouble. And that's why self-knowledge is absolutely essential. Self-knowledge being the understanding of oneself, how one's consciousness functions, and what is the causation that produces all these negative emotions within us. So that kind of learning through observation and through part analysis, coupled with all this, inquiry, wonder, humility, the learning mind, is what cultivates true intelligence. So he pointed out that the way we have defined intelligence is really not intelligence. So just as what we consider to be love, which may be just sexuality or desire or attachment, is not really love. So in the same way, what we consider to be intelligence is not real intelligence. And unless you inquire into all this, you don't come upon wisdom. You come upon your own particular set of illusions for which you work. And they are different for illusions in another mind, and that divides you between the two. Truth doesn't divide. Truth is the same for all human beings, but we are not living with truth. We are living with images, with illusions, and illusions divide us. That's why the division can be ended, because illusion can be ended through the quest for truth. And that is religion. Truth is the highest religion. That's something that Hindu scriptures also said, Satyam Nasti Paro Dharma. That's what the Theosophists took as their motto and worked for it. Out of this religious inquiry, there came a number of wise people throughout the world. They gave out a teaching, but their followers, instead of trying to discover the wisdom of their teacher and come upon the wisdom, started following the teacher, praising him, making a temple to him, worshipping him, spreading his word, and so on. And that became the orthodox religions, in which there came divisions. In all religions, there are divisions. Shia and Sunni, Catholic and Protestant, casteism in Hinduism, and so on. Because without wisdom, without deep understanding, it always goes wrong. Self-interest takes over. And the one central illusion of whole of humanity, this is not what Krishna said, but what I have surmised out of his teaching, that the one central illusion of whole of humanity is that self-interest is in our self-interest. It's not. If you approach life with self-interest, which is what we are doing, it results in the kind of society we are having globally, with all this war and crime and division and so on. So we are really not intelligent. Now there is tremendous intelligence in nature. There is tremendous balance in nature. We think we are far more intelligent than the animals, but I question it. Because the animals have not created the ecological catastrophes. Our progress has created, so-called progress has created it. And it is now endangering the whole of the earth and humanity. It is that kind of progress which has created, which has made war extremely dangerous, million times more devastating and dangerous than it ever was 1,000 years ago. Because of all these weapons, nuclear bombs and so on, which has creation of this kind of intelligent mind. So the intelligence is being used in service of hatred, of division, seeking victory rather than understanding. No war has solved any problem, except maybe temporarily. History shows us that every war has sown the seeds of the next war. And yet, humanity is not intelligent enough to eliminate war. After all, within a country, we don't accept war. We say if you have a dispute, take it to the court, have arbitration, come to an agreement, otherwise accept what the judges have said. You can't kill and plunder, and you cannot take law into your own hands. But it doesn't apply internationally. Across the border, if you kill, you are a hero. If you kill within the country, you are a murderer to be put in prison or executed. Same act of killing another human being makes you a hero in one place and a criminal in another. So there are a lot of questions that need to be raised. And we think we are very intelligent. I doubt whether we are really intelligent. There is a poem which was written jocularly, which I read in the newspaper when I was in what they call intermediate, class 11th and 12th. It came in Times of India. It has stuck to my memory because it raises a question which it may have raised perhaps jocularly, but I consider that we need to consider it seriously. I would like to share this poem and then maybe end this talk with that. It says, one day at the zoo I met a most superior ape of frank and noble countenance and of a pleasing shape. Superior ape, I said, pray tell, a thing I long to know. If the summer hydrogen bomb brought the floods, will the winters bring the snow? Surely, sir, the ape replied, after some hesitation. If you do not think I presume above my proper station, there is no need to worry. With such great risks, no man will drop another in a hurry. Ah, foolish ape, you miss the point, cried I in indignation. Drop them we must. We thus ensure democracy's salvation. Well, sir, the ape replied, if you are intent on dying, I see small difference in freezing or in frying. But if all that evolution has done is bring you to this stage, I should be outside, he said, and you be in this cage. What is our answer? Why should we be roaming around? We who have created so much destruction, not only of the earth, of nature, but also of our own species. No other species has created that much cruelty or that much destruction, either of nature or of its own species or other species. And yet we are the most intelligent. What is our definition of superiority? Is superiority to be assessed by power? Or is the mind that is kind, that is generous, that is wise, is superior, intelligent, compared to the mind which has only capacity, but no wisdom? So we need to look at all this. We are really not superior. The animals live in harmony with the laws of nature. We have replaced the intelligence of nature with our own intelligence, thinking we are very superior. And I question that, because we have brought humanity and the earth to near annihilation. This is not an emotional statement. Some of the best scientists today, ecologists and so on, are pointing out that this is our last century, that human beings are not going to survive this century. And yet, we call ourselves intelligent. So I'll end it here, and maybe we can discuss some of this. I'm not being pessimistic, I'm a scientist. I'm being very realistic, but the picture is grim. It's not my creation to make it pessimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kindly keep muted. You have an option for raising your hand. It'll be convenient, if we can invite one by one. And when I call your name, kindly unmute. I can see the first hand, Krishnamurti.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
This meeting is being recorded.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, of course. This is question hour.
Yeah. Sir, you have nicely explained the intelligence of thought, which is logic, reasoning, intellect, all these things is very nicely understood. But there is also an intelligence of the body, which is the connected with the cosmic intelligence or the intelligence of the nature. Then we are talking about intelligence of love and compassion. As Krishna ji pointed out, unless there is love and compassion, there is not this that intelligence of which he is talking. My question is, all these three types of intelligence,
Okay,
are they
thank you.
related to each other, number one? And do they emanate from the same source?
Sir,
And
the intelligence of nature, you can see it operating in nature. It is operating in our body. 10,000 things happen just right in our body. All I do is eat some food and take some exercise. It doesn't require my intelligence or willpower or anything to digest the food or to make me sleep and so on. It just happens automatically. It's part of the order of nature. Scientists study that order and determine the laws that govern that order. What they are describing through their laws is the manner in which that nature's intelligence operates. But we have broken away from that intelligence and substituted it with the intelligence of our intellect. Ogden Nash wrote, perhaps again humorously, he said, progress was all right once, but it went on too long. I take that seriously. It is this kind of progress, wanting more and more, the greed of fulfilling all our desires and wanting all the luxuries and so on, which has created the global warming, the crisis of fossil fuels and so on. I don't have to describe it. We are all reading about it in our newspapers and magazines every day. We have brought that. Otherwise, before we had all this so-called intelligence, human beings were worshipping nature and also living in harmony with nature. We didn't have the ability to devastate nature. You could cut one tree or one branch, but you could not cut down a whole forest, which we have the ability to do now. And you can see the consequences of it, the climate change and global warming and so on. All that is a consequence of disturbing the balance of nature. So it has not been intelligent. You have to work in harmony with nature. And man did for thousands of years. It's only in the last 100 or 200 years with the Industrial Revolution that the whole attitude towards nature changed and man started feeling that he is the master of nature, not a friend of nature. And that nature is a resource that can be exploited for economic benefit, which ultimately means that it will fulfill all our endless desires. So that's what happens when there is unbridled intelligence of only a fragment of your being, not coupled with understanding or wisdom.
Pradeep Prakash, kindly ask your question, unmute yourself. Others remain.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I have a great regard for Padmanabhan Krishnaji and Krishnamurti. But somehow, I have a fundamental objection to this tone and tenor of negativity, which is visible in Krishnamurti as well as right now in the same tone and tenor that Padmanabhanji has said. And this is what I have, my understanding is there's a huge intelligence, in this life. The sun is giving the energy on which this earth is surviving. The earth is rotating at a particular distance. If it moves away, everything will freeze. If it goes closer, everything will, burn. And there's a huge intelligence in the biological processes, in the natural processes, and in the human intelligence and in the human brain. 10 billions and billions of, neurons fire. Who made this? Which is that intelligence? This is super intelligent. This is super intelligence working. So do you think that this violence, this war, and I'm not asking do you think I'm stating that this violence, this war, etc., I don't see it as life thrives on these kind of conflicts, Ram and Ravan. The life has created, as you said, life has created Ram and Ravan, and people are the best in creativity, in intelligence when they are in their survival mode. And nature, look at nature. The lion has to eat food. Why intelligence has that is making this life made life like this, where lion has to eat hirans or those kind of junior animals which it can kill, and their number is much more than the lion, despite the fact that lion is killing them. So what I'm saying is, my thesis is this, that life is super intelligence, and it thrives on the cyclical process of violence and non-violence and violence and non-violence. And this is the way the progress, what is progress? So the life has not given freedom to humans. Life has not given freedom to anybody. And life gives freedom to only that person which becomes extremely responsible. Otherwise, life holds you. Even in society, we put the person in prison if he is not behaving responsibly. So I have a lot more faith in the intelligence which is creating this world, and look at the kind of facility I am enjoying now, which even Ashoka, which even the Akbar did not enjoy. I can talk to anybody. I am sitting outside an air
What is
conditioned.
your question, sir? We
Sir,
have
my
all,
question is that this fundamental negativity, that man is violent, that man is this, man is negative, is absolutely incorrect understanding of life. So what is
but that is, you have misunderstood. That is not what is being said. Maybe the manner in which I expressed it created that feeling. Nobody denies what you have just said. The point is, evolution gave us enhanced capacity for memory, for awareness, for imagination, language, and thinking ability, which animals have in a much smaller measure. Have we used these faculties which nature has provided to us wisely? Have we learned what is the right use of these faculties? Or do we use them according to a confused mind which thinks that self-interest is in its self-interest? And it creates all this devastation. For example, why can't we use our intelligence to eliminate war as a means of solution? All you have to do is what you do within the country. You have to do it for the whole globe. One is not able to do that because all human beings have identified themselves with a fragment, either their nation or their religion or their culture or their race and so on, and created this division. That's an undeniable fact. So surely, if we are intelligent, we should be able to outgrow this psychological thing. It's not nature which has, nature only gave us these faculties. We have decided how to use them. These faculties were present also in the prophets and in Krishnamurti or in Socrates and so on. But they didn't use it this way. So we cannot absolve ourselves of this responsibility that if we are using it all for promoting self-interest, we are creating the destruction.
sorry, just one comment I want to make, sir. I understand what you're saying.
Before that, yes, I have still to say one anecdote which illustrates a point which we need to consider. When Gandhi was murdered by Godse, 30th January 1948, around that time, Krishnamurti was giving talks in Bombay. And someone asked him, who was responsible for the murder of Gandhi? And he said, he gave a long reply, which you can read, but I am paraphrasing it. He said, each one of you who is divided from his fellow man on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste, on the basis of nationality, is responsible for that murder. Because the law considers that only Godse and a couple of conspirators along with him were responsible for that murder because he pulled the trigger of the gun. But what created Godse? Godse was not born a murderer. He was just a human born in this society. And he grew up and he got infected with all this religious division and so on, which each one of us has contributed to. So Krishnamurti is saying there is a much wider responsibility. Society is what each one of us is. It's not something separate from us. Because our mind has casteism in it, therefore there is casteism in our practices, in relationship, and therefore it is maintained in society. So when you understand that, then you realize that everything that is happening across the world, all of us human beings have contributed to it. We think only the people affected by it in that region are responsible. No, he's saying all of us are responsible and we need to change ourselves in order to have a different society. You think you can do it by having science and you can do it by, you can do some things. You will make better bridges or invent a new kind of operation for health and so on, which is fine. But those are not the major problems facing humanity. The major problems facing humanity are this warfare, terrorism, hatred, division.
Professor Krishna, good morning and good morning, everyone. I just have
Morning.
2 questions. Good morning, sir. Missing Varanasi and missing meeting you. Okay. Sir, I just want to talk about David Bohm's and Krishnaji's conversation where they talk about has the humanity taken a wrong turn? So we obviously have. So if you could say a little more because you've actually covered a lot. So, and what will take us to take the right turn actually now? And connected to that is Krishnaji once said that life straightens everybody. So we actually experience that. And I think even now life will straighten all governments and all everybody actually, because climate change is here and all of us are seeing the devastation of it. So nature's intelligence has superseded again. How much ever we have tried to really win over nature, it has not happened. And that intelligence is clearly operating. So now governments and all of us have no option left but to go for sustainable living. So could you just talk about these 2 things, sir? Thank you.
I'm not an expert on ecological things, but I have read some of the books of experts and scientists. And they are saying that we have already crossed the line of return. That now, whatever you may do scientifically and so on, you cannot come back to the balance of nature. That certain amount of devastation is inevitable. And one is seeing that happening. The polar caps are melting, the seas are rising, the storms and etc. Climate change, all that disasters are increasing. And they are pointing out that Bangladesh and Florida and such, Holland and so on, which are cities or countries which are close to the sea, they will go under the sea by 2050 or so. And that it is almost not preventable now. because you cannot reverse the trend. The temperature rise has been much more. We should have woken up much earlier. So I hope they are wrong. Not all scientists believe that, but fairly intelligent people. I would direct you to, if you are interested in this, I would directly to a book called Our Final Century, written by Martin Rees. It was published some 10 years.
Thank you, sir.
10
I will
years.
check it out.
Yeah. He was a cosmologist, a scientist, was president of the Royal Society of London, one of the top scientists of the world. And he has written this book and given scientific reasons why devastation is inevitable and we are not going to survive this. But we have brought this upon ourselves. So that is the point. It's not pessimistic, it is scientists who are saying this. Scientists are neither pessimistic nor optimistic. They are people who look at facts and predict. I hope they are wrong, but that's what they are saying. And your first question was about David Bohm and Krishnamurti, the humanity taking the wrong turn. I think I may be wrong, but I think the wrong turn was that we started using imagination, memory, and thought to promote self-interest and to identify with our own tribe and hate other tribes and destroy them. So this whole use of these things for violence, thinking that victory will secure safety, was not true, was an illusion. And that was the wrong turn that mankind took. If we didn't identify and we thought of the whole and not only of the fragment with which we identify, namely my country, my family, my religion, and so on, then it would be a very different world. You would consider all human beings. And that is what is right action wherever you are. When you consider not your own interest or that of your own particular group, but the interest of the whole, then your action is right action. But when you want to promote only the interest of your group, it creates this division and war and so on, which Krishnaji has explained in great detail. And you can't refute it, that logic. So I think that that was the wrong turn. That
Thank
we
you,
started
sir.
working out of self-interest instead of the interest of the whole.
Mr. T.S. Krishnamurti, you wanted to participate? Be brief, sir.
Yeah. First of all, let me compliment Mr. Padmanabha Krishna for his excellent and lucid exposition. I agree with him totally, but I've got only one small question. The Upanishads in India are more or less based on this, namely, understand knowledge through questioning. How far do you think the Upanishads have succeeded in promoting intelligence?
No book, whether Upanishad or Krishnamurti, can create intelligence in you, because it needs this integration of senses, the intellect, the emotions, the memory. None of these is inessential. And yet we need to learn what is the right use of all these faculties which we have acquired. Without that understanding, which is what is called self-knowledge, without this art of living, which is what Krishnamurti defined it, has, the right balance between all these faculties. It goes wrong when only one particular faculty is energized and promoted and the other is ignored. So that's why he wanted to change education, because this is something that every human being requires. It was a wrong idea among the population that only the religious man needs to do this. And once he becomes free or wise, he will tell us how to live and we will follow him. That picture, that concept has been repeatedly proven to be false. Human beings are not able to follow the wise man. Let's look at that a little bit to improve our own understanding. Supposing I decide to follow Gandhi, I can use my will to drink goat's milk. I can wear khadi. I can get a charkha and produce spin thread out of it, and so on. These things are within your realm of your decision making. But these are not the great things about Gandhi. What was great was that he did not hate his enemies. So how will you eliminate hatred from your heart? That's not amenable to decision. Our decision works only in very superficial matters. You can decide what to eat, which car to buy, which house to live in, and so on. You can't decide to be happy. You can't decide to be peaceful. You can't decide to perceive beauty. You can't decide to be nonviolent. So the greatest things in life are those which don't come from decision. They are a byproduct of your understanding of life and of yourself, which is what self-knowledge is. So Krishna said self-knowledge is the key to wisdom. These are his words. And without wisdom, without love and compassion, it'll always go wrong. And that is what is happening. We have not come upon real love, compassion, wisdom. We have come upon everything else, and it goes wrong.
Mr. Sudhir Sharma, would you like to?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Professor
Good
Krishna.
morning. Good morning.
My question is simple, sir. We understand from your talk and otherwise also that we are very self-centered, and that is the cause of division between man and man, and hence the conflicts and confrontations. So the recommendation is to investigate the whole field of this. But despite one being very sincere and honest in efforts, no breakthrough is coming. The breakthrough is the problem, because the intentions are very good, but that breakthrough doesn't come. So what is the fundamental mistake we are making in investigating this whole field of self-centeredness? And from your personal perspective, what will bring the breakthrough, or what is it that is lacking in our effort? What is the mistake we are making, despite all that knowledge about it?
I've got your question. You see, sir, self-interest or the ego functions in extremely subtle ways. The crude ways of killing or hitting and so on, we do object. But the subtle ways go on between human beings. They create division, they create jealousy, and so on. We have not been encouraged, we have been taught and encouraged to acquire knowledge, but we have not been encouraged in this inquiry. This inquiry is very factual, very existential. And Krishna has pointed out that you need to watch your own consciousness. See how it operates. Don't object to it. Don't judge it. Don't say it should not be this way and so on. Those are just opinions. They won't work. You have to learn about it. It's a process that happens within you. So next time you feel angry, next time you feel jealous, it's an opportunity to learn about yourself. We have not been taught to do that. We have been taught to suppress these as evil things and use our willpower. We have been told cultivate virtues and eschew vices. And we have repeatedly failed, but we have not learned that through will you cannot do that. Will is the essence of the ego. So without making a destination, can you just simply learn about yourself? Like you learn about nature, about physics, about the universe. In the same way, can you just learn about yourself without judging, without saying it should be so, not so, and so on? Then you will come to a deeper understanding of what is the ego and what are its consequences. But if you simply say ego should not be there, one should not think or one should not have emotions and so on, you form all kinds of formulae and try to practice those formulae, it doesn't work. Virtue cannot be practiced. This sentence you need to really investigate so that it becomes part of your being and understanding, so that you don't create a new set of virtues out of Krishnamurti's teaching, saying do this and don't do this. There is nothing in Krishnamurti's teaching saying do this and don't do this. He says, come upon love, love being where self-interest is not. The motive is not self-interest, then you are acting out of love. Come upon love, then do what you will, it will be right. We have not come upon love. So long as you are functioning with self-interest, your aims may be very noble, but it will inevitably end in violence and division and corruption. That kind of approach, you may be building a hospital and therefore you may think it's a very good thing to build a hospital because it will cure many people of disease. And yes, it is. Not that you should not build a hospital, but if you make that your aim and go about it ambitiously, the ambition will destroy you. Can you do that with love, not with ambition? That's the teaching. So everything can be done with self-interest. The same thing can be done without self-interest. If you are not egoistic, you will change the way it is done. You can do business. You can run a bank without self-interest. Then you will change the way it functions. That's the teaching. Don't accept this, investigate. Investigate that is true.
Another friend, our Rajendran, would like to ask a question, please.
Please.
Thank you, Professor Krishna.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Sorry, I have two questions. Number one, as per you, if you suggest one statement of K that is truth, one should first perceive or understand which only then open the gate to K's field. That is a basic thing one should understand first. Then only we will be able to understand the rest of K's teachings. Which, as per you, which is the one? That is number one. Number two question.
Yeah, I'll tell you that before. See, at my age, it becomes difficult to remember a number of questions and then answer them serially. So I'll answer one at a time. So I have understood your question. The one statement I consider most important. He says, what I am saying is not the truth, but it is something that is pointing to the truth. You have to investigate it. You have to take it as a question and watch in your life with a learning mind, and you can come upon the truth for yourself. That's what you have to do. But we are not willing to do that because it's painstaking. And the truth is often very disturbing, because you may be going on with an illusion which is very comforting, that you are a very noble person and so on, and the truth may be that you are not. And then you don't want to see the truth. So this ego is a very subtle, acts in a very subtle way. And unless you carefully observe without judging and condemning and opposing or taking sides, what he called passive awareness, which is a sort of witness consciousness, like the scientist observing a planet. He has nothing to do with the planet. He's just wanting to understand how the planet moves and so on. In the same way, can you watch your consciousness without judging, without coming to conclusions? Just watch the way it operates. That will grow in your understanding. That will grow your understanding. That understanding is self-knowledge, is wisdom. We don't have it. So what happens is usually the crude parts drop off, but the subtle self-interest in subtle ways continues. And you become a more sophisticated person, but still an egoist. So it's not so simple. It's not very difficult. You have to be simple, but we have become so complicated and so full of our competition and education and the pursuit of pleasure and so on. A lot of things have to be understood, and we are in a hurry. We want it all, that somebody tell us what to do and that's it, I'll do it. Sorry, it's not something so simple like that. You took 20 years to learn mathematics, and then you knew how the computer operates or how the projectile goes into space. And you think this quest is far more difficult than the quest of mathematics and physics. But we think that in one lecture or in one day, we should get some results out of it. No, it's far more difficult. We have not been trained into this. What is difficult and what is easy is simply that which you know how to deal with is easy. That which you don't know how to deal with is difficult.
Thank you. Thank you. That another question, sorry.
Yeah.
Krishnaji says, intelligence is outside the brain. Love, compassion, wisdom, truth does not belong to you. Even perception of truth also, it does not belong to you. It belongs to the whole humanity. So how do we receive it? Even awareness, intelligence, love, compassion, truth, etc. It is, we see, are they outside our body? Or just like a Amazon cloud services, we receive it. So from some cosmic source, I wonder, sir, please.
Yes, sir, yeah. Sir, you can't, you are right, you cannot really perceive the truth because the mind is not free. And so long as it's not free, it colors your perception and therefore distort the truth. So you can't go after truth directly. What you can do is unlearn the false. The false, which is the illusion, creates all the negative emotions. And once you understand the causation, how that false notion produces that emotion, it frees you. That understanding frees you. And once you free yourself, truth will come to you. You can't go to the truth. That's how I have understood him. And I think that that is true, what he is saying. Therefore, don't try to formulate a truth and go towards it. We don't know what the truth is. The truth is unknown. Free yourself of the false in the known. And the problem is that the mind that is trapped in illusion is not aware that it is in illusion. You may see the illusion of the terrorist, but to him that is truth, what he is going by. So to Hitler, it was the truth that Jews had to be eliminated for betterment of humanity. We may think it was false and so on. He didn't think so. Similarly, our mind has several illusions which we are not aware of. So once you understand this, that we all have blind spots and we have other spots of clarity, then we can help each other, because my blind spots are not the same as yours. So if we are very honest and we can inquire together with this understanding that we need to help each other, not fight with each other, then in a dialogue without any division, we can help each other lighten up our dark spots. That's the purpose of dialogue. It's not a discussion, it's not a debate, it's not an argument. It is just trying to perceive what is false. It's unlearning the false.
Good morning, sir. So my question is actually a word which is commonly used along with the intelligence is intuition. So I just wanted to know, is there any kind of relation between the two, especially with statements like intuition is the highest form of intelligence and all that? Thank you, sir.
Perhaps there is, but you have to be very careful, because you may not be having real intuition. It may be a message coming from your subconscious, which you mistake as intuition. Therefore, that's why it needs skepticism, it needs inquiry, it needs doubt, and not coming quickly to any conclusion. I'll give you an example. You know, we have all seen Indian movies, and usually the same actor takes the role of a villain. In my time, it was Pran who used to be the villain. So what happens? That image gets associated with villainy. And you meet a man at a party who resembles that face. And your intuition will say something is wrong with this man. He may be perfectly fine gentleman, but your intuition is coming from your subconscious, from the memory of Pran's face associated with villainy. So that's how this conditioning works. And you must be aware of this danger. So if you're aware of it, you don't accept your intuition. You investigate it. That, okay, my mind is saying this, may not be true. So without this investigation, without this humility, there is no learning taking place. We are too sure of what we think, and we form opinions, generally favorable opinions about ourselves and so on. So that's the difficulty. We are ourselves wanting to perceive the truth, and we are ourselves in the way. That's the difficulty. You have to get out of the way.
Vinod Kumar.
Sir, very good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. I am from Chennai, sir, Tamil Nadu. Sir, people right now that you know very well that they are fear, anxiety because of this climate change, even that coronavirus, even that world it is affected. And sir, I am in Chennai. 2014, we are affected of flood. That time, all Chennai city is collapsed. So that time you can see, sir, more youth people right now that 18 years old and 23 years old, they are energized and somewhat they are new person. they are have that some kind of love and affection with the people. So many people they are take care. So many people they are saved. Even what you told, that not only the human beings, they are saved a lot of animals also, sir. Even this corona time also, that so many people they are voluntarily come, they are helping the people actually, sir. Actually the really this global warming and this kind of situation, it is happened, it is because of that understand that people love and affection, sir. Because right now that this youth, they can understand themselves and they can understand others also need to be help actually. They need to care themselves. So, current individual they are thinking like that, sir. I'm not talking about the old people, sir.
Yeah.
And this world right now somewhat, because of this, it is changed some kind of positive thing, sir. Right now only we are not killing each other. Even that before 100 200 300 years before, in between the countries, people take a sword and killing each other. Right now that even no people, they are not doing like that, sir. But machine guns, technology.
Vinod Kumar, I've got your
Yes, sir.
question.
Yes,
May
sir.
I
Got
respond?
it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, actions are at two levels. One is to solve the immediate problem. So there is a rapist on the road and is a danger to women. Then the police has to catch hold of him and put him in prison or whatever to protect the others. That's an immediate action that they do. But that won't cure the disease. The deeper long-term question is, why is our society producing rapists? That means, what is the cause why human beings become rapists? If you don't solve the cause, you will merely eliminate a few rapists and more rapists will be born. And that's what is going on. So we have criminals being born in our society. We have to consider why our children become criminals and solve that so that they don't become criminals. That is the long term, right? That would require education, etc. But so long as there is a criminal going around with a gun trying to kill people, you have to catch hold of him and protect the other people, which is what the government is doing. So one is dealing with the symptom. The symptom is global warming. You have to deal with it, no doubt about it. And the scientists are trying to deal with it. One is not saying that that should not be done, but that won't solve the problem, because the problem has come because of this whole approach to nature being wrong. And so more problems will come. And our idea of progress is wrong. It's not really progress. Every progress is accompanied with a lot of ignorance. I'll give you one example. In 1935, the scientists invented this CFC, which was considered a great discovery because it enabled refrigeration and air conditioning and so on, and added to our comfort. 50 years later, they discovered that these CFCs had destroyed the ozone layer and made a big hole in the ozone layer. So the balance of nature was upset. But it took 50 years for that effect to be discovered. That was the ignorance in 1935. We thought it was a great discovery, but it was not a great discovery. So every piece of knowledge is also accompanied by ignorance, which means you don't know what the effect of this new thing would be. And that is the deeper reason why this kind of progress that we have achieved hasn't created happiness and peace and welfare, but has brought about all this global warming and climate change and other disasters, right? So there are two levels at which we have to act. We have to, for the long-term solution, you have to eliminate this approach of self-interest and exploitation. for the immediate problem, social problem that is facing, you have to take whatever intelligent measures you can to contain. But when you contain the symptom, it doesn't cure the disease. If I may give the analogy of the body, if you are developing boils at different parts of your body, no doubt you must treat each boil with mercurochrome or some antiseptic and so on. But if you will never go to a doctor and find out why am I getting all these boils, what is the underlying cause, the doctor will give you a medicine that will put that cause away. And when the cause goes away, you will come back to health. Then you will not get boils. So in the same way, what is the deeper causation of war? Is a psychological division between the two communities. If you don't deal with that, you will keep on having war again and again and again. So you can see the example of Kashmir. 1948, the problem got created, 47, 48. We are still at square one. I mean, we have made so many attempts to solve that problem, but that only deals with the symptom. Some agreement saying, you take this land, give me this land, but your approach is still the same, and therefore the division is still there, and so it has not solved. The same about Palestine and Arabs and Jews in Middle East. It started in 1948. It is still the same problem there. So unless you solve the psychological problem, it's the psychological problem which manifests eventually as the physical warfare. And you start waking up only when it becomes physical warfare. It's too late. It's too late. Of course, you have to deal with the symptom, but you have to also learn that this symptom has come because of your folly. And if that folly is continuing, more symptoms will come. This COVID is also one of the symptoms of that kind of approach which we have made. And we are continuing like that approach. Let me give you a question to all of you. All our research efforts, even today, are directed towards producing a still faster computer, a still better watch, a still faster aeroplane, going into space, and so on. When real problems which we are facing are global warming, ecological crisis, pollution of our water and air and food, and all this warfare and terrorism, and these are the real problems. We are not working on our real problems. We are still doing, and the answer is, yes, that's what we know how to do because that's what we have been trained to do, which means you are not questioning. You are just going along wanting to earn money, right? That has become the main factor of propelling you. That whole approach is false, is wrong. It will never solve. So look at it that way. What is the long-term solution and what is the immediate solution? And don't mistake the immediate solution to be the long-term solution. Krishnamurti, talking of the long-term solution.
Sorry, sir. Divyakant, you have...
Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sir, I had a question. I wanted to know, like, what is your opinion on how free are we? So, like, say for example, I mean, do all our actions, are they predetermined? We are born in a kind of a society, we are educated in a particular way, or we meet a particular kind of people. So are we destined for a path, or there is some kind of freedom that we have? And that is basically what my question is. I mean, how free do you think, or what is your opinion on how free human beings are?
The moment you discover for yourself that you are not free, you have set in motion the attempt to free yourself. But so long as you are not even aware that you are not free, that your mind is conditioned and that there are a lot of consequences of this. You are quite happy with your conditioning and you want victory with for your conditioning, and you are willing to attack other conditionings and so on, which is what is going on most of the time. So that's the first step. The moment you discover that you don't know, it's already a sign of intelligence. That's the beginning of the learning mind. But then a lot of learning has to be done. And that learning, unfortunately, we have been taught to do through thinking, which is a mistake because thought comes from memory, and memory contains all these illusions. So thought is a colored instrument. So you will never solve it with thought. I mean, we have used a lot of thought to solve the problem in the Middle East and in Kashmir. Has it really given any result? No. Because it's all that thought is being done under a certain assumption and approach, which itself is faulty. Let me take the instance of Kashmir, because that concerns us directly in India. They are asking, is this territory belongs to me or to you? And arguing about that it belongs to me or belongs to you. There is no solution at that level, so long as both sides are thinking in this way. Einstein pointed out in some other context that the same kind of thinking which created the problem cannot solve the problem. You have to go to a different level of thinking. That's what wisdom does. Wisdom gives you a different level of thinking. So, suppose both India and Pakistan say, listen, that land belongs to the earth. It's neither yours nor mine. We are in charge of it. We are asking who is in charge. There are people living there. There are forests, there are rivers, there are animals living there. Why do you want to be in charge? You want to be in charge in order to protect them, give them a good life, make for happiness and prosperity for them. Pakistan also wants that. So why argue about whether it belongs to me or you? Why don't we discuss, if you want to do, you also come and do, I will also come and do, we will both join hands and do what is right for the people of Kashmir, without asking this question whether it belongs to you or it belongs to me. It doesn't belong to either of us. Now that's a different plane of thinking. It's not so impractical because you have this example of the European Union. You know, the France and Germany and England were all the time at war with each other. Nobody could imagine that one day war will be eliminated there. All they had to do was to say these borders and so on. It didn't come about through wisdom, but it came about through economic pressures and so on. That is true. But eventually now, there is no possibility of war between these countries because they have eliminated the border. The border has become just Germany is in charge of that much piece of land and France is in charge of that much piece. The armies are not at loggerheads with each other, and they have agreed to have a common currency and so on. Why can't India, Pakistan, Bangladesh do that? Our main problem is poverty. There's poverty in all the three countries. Address that problem. Forget about whether it belongs to you or belongs to me, and stop fighting across the border. It doesn't help anybody. And half the revenue of each country is going in maintaining this army, navy, and air force. In the eventuality that there may be a war and so on. So you believe in peace coming through balance of terror. That's not peace. So your understanding of peace is wrong. Peace is when there is friendship, when there is trust. So unless you solve the psychological problem, you will never be able to solve the physical problem. The long-term problem is the psychological problem. And Krishnaji said that way back in 1930s and continued to. He said, the individual problem is not separate from the world problem. It's this psychological problem which is the cause of individuals breaking up, relationships breaking up, hatred and so on. It's also the cause of nations breaking up and the war and so on. It's the same thing. But we have never really looked at it that way or understood it that way, at least not on a mass scale. There are individuals who understand and who may have freed themselves, but they are few and far between. And it's the masses that determine what society will be.
Mr. Dunda, would you like to join, sir?
Good afternoon, and everyone. This is Ravi from Dunda, KRC. My question is, my understanding is about intelligence is that we have three intelligence. One is bodily auto intelligence, which operate by itself. Second is mental intelligence, that is sometimes destructive, sometimes constructive, sometimes sensitive. That is partial intelligence, that is limited. And we are talking about the supreme intelligence, that is unlimited. My first question is, can this limited intelligence detect, discover, find the supreme intelligence? And if yes, why millions of people pursuing that couldn't find it, even with staying 50, 60, 70 years, staying, talking with Buddha? Thank you.
Good question. The short answer is no. You cannot, through this kind of intelligence, you cannot come to the holistic intelligence. First of all, if you have learned that this intelligence is severely limited and that is not the real intelligence, then you begin to wonder what the real intelligence is. And you are willing to work to come upon that integrated intelligence. So you come upon the problem of self-interest and you start watching your motive with which you are functioning. As I said, the same work can be done with self-interest, the same work can be done without self-interest, out of love. You have to find out, are you working out of self-interest or are you working out of love?
Rajati?
We are promoting ambition, which is achievement. We are making heroes of those people who can jump 0.5 millimeter more than everybody else. It's ridiculous. What is the great achievement in jumping 0.5 millimeter more than everybody else? Have you questioned that? Just because an Indian jumps, I start feeling proud. What have I done to make him jump?
Absolutely. What's my contribution?
All that is psychological illusion we create. We have promoted competition and rivalry and created this artificial world in which a person who can play cricket a little better than others becomes a hero and he earns crores of rupees and so on. Another person who can jump 0.5 millimeter more or run a little bit better earns crores and becomes a hero. Sorry, they are not heroes. They're just people who have greater ability, nothing wrong with that. But don't mistake that for heroism.
I say really it was a very enlightening session and all of us, we enjoyed it. And maybe we can invite him again for some time. Actually, we will decide, we will plan with him and then let you know about it. Okay, he's such a good friend, not only for Rajghat and KFI, but he is very good friend of Bangalore Education Center and our study center also. So I would really like him to come again for this such meetings, which we can now easily host. Otherwise, to invite somebody from Banaras was a very difficult task. But with Zoom, something has become easier, and this has become easier with Zoom. So thank you very much, Krishna. I think we would like you to come again for these meetings. Yeah. Krishna, all of us actually, because we were not getting you for some time,
Yes.
we have ended the meeting, and we, in your absence, we thanked you also, and we really, all of us, everybody wish, it is everybody's wish that you please come again and address our gathering again. And
anytime.
I was just saying that with otherwise coming from Banaras to Bangalore and everything was very difficult. It seemed very difficult earlier, but with Zoom it has become easier. Look, so
Right.
yeah, so everybody
Got
is
your
very
thanks and so on intuitively.
intuitively, you must have got my thanks.
Yeah, I got it.
I will write to you, but we would really like you to come again. Thank
Sure.
you.
Anytime
Thank
you
you.
want. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.